When the Immortal Empires map releases for Total War Warhammer 3, it will be accompanied by a DLC, promising 4 new champions in a single Lord pack, which is a bit of a departure from how they've done it previously. What's curious though is that most channels that cover Total War normally have been largely silent on speculating about this particular DLC, probably because they're all burned out after a rather difficult launch and the community is currently a raging dumpster fire. But you don't spend 10 years in public education because you know when to quit. So instead, let's take the optimistic approach and believe that the game will get better and that when this DLC arrives, you're going to be as excited as I am to try it out. The DLC pack most likely revolves around the Champions of Chaos, a mortal who has proven themselves in their service to one of the 4 Chaos gods and has been elevated to better serve them. Clearly, this is not the Chaos Dwarfs, which some channels may have speculated about previously, totally not this one, ignore that video right there, that totally didn't happen, and I'm not bitter about it at all. Besides the rather blatant hint in the blog post, the Champions of Chaos are the most likely answer here because, well, with 4 gods and 4 lords, it's a pretty easy fix. And, more importantly, the Warriors of Chaos are getting a rework at the same time, and historically, the Creative Assembly likes to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And there's been a bit of a debate on exactly what that would look like, as technically these are the Demons of Chaos, and therefore they can't have mortal champions. But that's not technically true, because if you'll notice here, it doesn't say Demons of Khorne, it just says Khorne, implying that anyone under this faction will just be a Khorne worshipper, and that is their defining trait. And that frees up a lot of possibility for DLC. See, back when it was in the tabletop days, originally the Demons and the Warriors of Chaos, as well as the Beastmen, were all under one big book, and then they got broken off into their own separate rosters. And initially, at least with the Warriors of Chaos in Warhammer 1 and the Demons of Chaos here, it seemed like that's what CA was doing as well. But you'll notice there are humans in the demon rosters of Warhammer 3's base game, so they've already sort of broken the rulebook a little bit, and look to be breaking it further here. Now, whether the Warriors of Chaos rework will break up the Warriors of Chaos base DLC into various factions seems unlikely, as really only Sigvald would go to a specific lord, Slaanesh in this case, and everyone else kind of falls under Chaos Undivided. But we do very much have the possibility of a Chaos God champion for each faction that would also have some Warriors of Chaos units in their roster, bringing about the various Chaos Warrior reskins and unique, hopefully, looks, as well as the new marked units. And I think the fact this is being labeled as a Lord pack is very important here, as the rosters for Warriors of Chaos and even the new Demons of Chaos really is pretty complete. There's not a whole lot of missing units, and one of the problems with DLC in Game 2 is we very quickly ran into unit bloat. But new starting lords with new starting positions gives even more options for gameplay without necessarily having to do that, and I personally feel would be a welcome change. But who would we see in a Legendary Lords DLC? Well, I call it the Mortal Champions. These are humans that have been elevated to demon status for serving their various gods. Luckily, the existing Warriors of Chaos book has plenty of obvious things to choose from. For Khorne, there's Valkia the Bloody, the warrior queen who was raised again to become the Valkyrie of Khorne, picking up the various Norskin warriors after they've died and bringing them to fight for Khorne. She has her own book series and is probably one of the most hotly anticipated lords just because she looks so darn cool. For Nurgle, the most likely champion is Festus the Leechlord, a former physician who eventually succumbed to Nurgle's charm while searching for the ultimate cure to all diseases, eventually becoming the person who now spreads all diseases, because Warhammer isn't without its sense of irony. For Tzeentch, the most likely candidate in my opinion is Vilitch the Curseling, also known as the Twisted Twin, who was actually born with a conjoined twin. One was very handsome and strong, and the other weak and cursed. But eventually, because it's Warhammer, the smaller, weaker one pledged to Tzeentch and took over the whole body, and now you have a sorcerer and a great big fighting guy at the same time. Now, this is a bit of a controversial choice, as Tzeentch does have a more well-known champion because he has his own book series. Egrimm Van Horstmann rides around on the back of a giant chaos dragon, and that is just awesome. He was originally a sorcerer of the light who was investigating demons by day but worshipping Tzeentch by night, before obviously he completely succumbed to the warping tendencies of Tzeentch. Now, either way you go on this one, it'll be a pretty cool lord. I tend to think the Curseling will be the more likely answer, as he is a bit more monstrous, and this is meant to be sort of that bridge between mortals and monsters, and thus easier to digest, but I actually think Egrimm is the more popular of the two, and by that token alone, may make him the most likely choice. Though this also works against him, as it means he could sell his own DLC if he was in just a separate Lord Versus pack. Which is all to say, I really have no idea, and it's a toss-up between the two. Slaanesh's most famous champion is already in the game, Sigvald the Magnificent, who you'll notice has a visible lack of mutations, at least on the outside. We can pretty easily assume that there are some on the inside, and at least one of them makes him immune to all STDs. But keeping with the idea that the champions that we have in this pack would be a bit more monstrous, it's more likely we would see a new character be brought in here. Obviously, people don't want to pay for the same thing twice, and double dipping on Sigvald would bring in some ire. So that makes Azazel the Prince of Damnation and a powerful demon prince the most likely choice. Azazel is a demon so old that no one is actually sure when he ascended to chaos, but there are stories of him serving and following Sigmar, the first emperor, before he eventually fled to the northern wastes. It's interesting to note that the beauty of Azazel is considered second only to his patron, and he is irresistible. But the irony of that, of course, being this model is horrendously ugly, and I'm not really sure what's up with that for Slaanesh as a whole, as they're supposed to be alluring. Possibly this is their, battle form, I guess, where they drop their humanity and have a deadly edge. But yeah, I wouldn't exactly be seduced by Demon Cupid here. All of these new legendary lords would likely draw on a system pulled from the Warriors of Chaos, where they're taking followers that will then be raised up to be champions and Chaos Knights, promoting them up through the ranks. It's quite possible this would be something like we saw for Diomedes and Ajax in Troy, where you have a single unit that then gets a true Mark of Chaos to fight for them, or something more akin to the Amazons, also from Troy, which had a truly excellent system where you had a base unit that then got promoted up through the ranks and specialized. I honestly expect this system to make a comeback and be part of the larger Warriors of Chaos rework, as it just fits so perfectly on theme with that faction. But none of the unique improvements and faction mechanics from Troy have actually made it into Warhammer before, so it would be a first, and so it's possible we might get something else entirely. It's interesting that one of the main complaints about this system on Reddit is that, oh man, it would take forever to raise someone from basic cultist all the way up to Chaos Champion, while clearly showing that they never actually played Troy, because several of the buildings and technologies allowed you to skip levels rather quickly. So just know that it actually works rather well and was by far one of the more fun things about the game. And that's what I see for this upcoming DLC, mainly focusing on legendary lords with very few units because of that, likely only one unique Chaos Knight per lord, but theoretically it will also be close to the same price, without being a true faction race pack. But what do you think? Am I on the mark here, or have I totally missed it? That's all I have for now, but I hope we'll find out more about this very soon. In the meantime though, thanks for watching.